Hey, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, this is going to be a little bit different for me here on my channel. The new Natasha Denona, what is it called? Her Triochrome palette or whatever it's called, where it's got the three, I'm just going to call them multichromes down the middle, and it's got a bunch of mattes on either side. I saw the palette, it released, well, it didn't release yet, but the picture was released yesterday, and I just wasn't feeling it. I wasn't too intrigued by it. But everybody, just about everybody I watch, is over the moon about this palette. So I was talking to a friend of mine that I work with. Her name is Elaine. You guys have probably heard me mention her before here on my channel. And she's always trying to give me video ideas. And when she asked me about the palette, she's like, please tell me you're not picking up this palette. And I was like, no, not interested. You know, I've got multichromes. I've got plenty of mattes. I don't need it. She was like, good, you know, it's expensive, whatever. She was like, you know, video idea, dupe it. So I really wanted to film this yesterday, but I just was feeling like complete garbage yesterday, and I didn't get around to filming it. I wanted to prove to myself that I can dig in my palette collection, and I can pretty much create just about any palette that's going to drop, including this one. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to pick from quite a few palettes to come up with a color story very similar to the one that's in this new Natasha Denona palette. And I'm going to share those with you guys today. So again, if you're somebody with a larger palette collection, or maybe, you know, a mid-sized palette collection, you probably already have most of these shadows in your collection. And if you don't, the ones you're missing are probably the multichromes. Multichromes you can get from Divina Cosmetics for a very affordable price point. You can also get them from Cleona, but you might be waiting a while. And you know, there's other places to get multichromes from instead of buying a $129 palette for 3 multichromes when you probably have most of those mattes. Now, if you're interested in seeing somebody dupe this palette with singles, like matte singles and whatnot, I will link Amy's video down below. Amy from Amy Loves Makeup. She did this video. She put it out this morning. I still wanted to do it for you guys since this is a different spin on it and I'm using palettes to pick from. So I think the best way for me to come up with these shades is to look at the swatches that they have posted on, well, the swatches that I took from Trend Mood's page, and I will link Trend Mood down below as well. So if let me scoot this way. Okay, so I'm going to put the swatches up so you guys can see them. All right, so the first shade that we're going to pick out is that really dark, grungy type of green shade. So I got to looking at these swatches and I'm like, is it a shimmer? Like, is it a satin? I can't really tell. From looking at the palette, I thought that it was a matte. So I picked out a matte shade and I tried to get it as close to that shade as I could. And the one that I found was in the Just My Luck palette from ColourPop. The shade I'm talking about is called Charmed, and it's right down here. This is a really dark, grungy green, and it looks super similar to the one that's in this palette. So I'm going to go ahead and swatch these as I go. That way I end up with swatches on my arm, just like the picture. Well, hopefully they're similar. I haven't actually swatched these out yet to see if they are. So we're finding out together. I am going to build them up just a tad here, because you know they built them up for these swatches. So the one in the picture is a little bit deeper than this. It's more of like I would say like a hunter green. And this is pretty close. This has more of like that olive undertone to it. But that's the one I picked. Okay, the second shade down, if you're looking in the palette, I thought it looked like a really like light matte yellow, like an off-white, but more of like a yellow tinged. But when I'm looking at the swatches, it's more of a gray toned matte, like white. An off-white, like eggshell white. That's the word I'm looking for. What are words? So I usually don't like to showcase this brand on my channel anymore, but I had the hardest time finding a eggshell matte white. I found one in my Bloodlust palette from Jeffree Star. I'm not going to throw away my palettes. Sorry, okay? They're paid for. I usually just don't showcase them, but I am going to pull out this shade right up here because it is an eggshell white. And that one's called Your Majesty. That was the closest I could get to what is in these swatches. Okay. Okay, the next shade down is that really beautiful multichrome green, and it looks like it shifts like a grungy green. Now the shade that I found in my collection that I thought was most similar to that is the shade called Patina from Cliona. And it looks like this. Now you can see straight on that grungy gold green, and I'm hoping I can get it to shift for you. And if not like this, maybe I can get it to shift on my arm. But this looks super similar to the one in the picture here that you saw a little bit of that shift there, that green. Let's see if it looks similar. I'm excited because I haven't really even gotten to play with the shadow yet. What do we think? Oh, I think that's pretty similar. Look how beautiful that is. That is yummy. Yummy, yummy, yumminess. Okay, the next shade down is like a lime green. See, in the palette, it looks, those swatches look off, or maybe it's the picture of the palette that looks off. So when I'm looking at the picture of the palette, it looks like a really pastel yellow, right? I'll throw a picture up here so you can see what I'm talking about. It just looks like a really bright, I don't know, like a Easter yellow. But when you look at the swatches, it looks like a lime green. I don't know. It's weird. So originally, when I first started picking these shades out, I had picked the shade Intoxicating from the Summer in Saint-Tropez palette from BH Cosmetics. And that's this really beautiful, bright matte yellow down here. And if you're looking at the palette, I feel like that would have been the perfect choice. But again, in the swatches, it looks green. So I might have to reevaluate the shade that we use there. All right, I think I found a shade to match the swatch. And it's this really pretty lime green shade from the NYX Ultimate Brights palette. It's this one here. I've had this palette forever. Never used it. Had to have it. Couldn't wait to grab it. Even like searched for it because it was out of stock. Never used it. Now I get to swatch with it. How exciting. There she is. Okay. All right, the next shade down is almost like, kind of like a mustard yellow. Okay, if I'm going off the colors strictly in the palette, because I'm having trouble finding something to match just the swatches, because they look so different across all the skin tones. Like on a deeper skin tone, it looks yellow. On a medium skin tone, it looks more of like a yellow-green. And on the lighter skin tone, it looks almost like an olivey green yellow, weird color. So I'm going to go with the picture of it in the actual palette, where it looks like that mustard yellow. And the shade that I found that was closest to that, or what I think is closest to that, is from the Anastasia Beverly Hills Pro Pigment Palette Volume Number 1. It's always a mouthful. It's way too much. And the shade that I'm going to compare it to is D1 up here. Again, I am building these colors up a bit. So far, that's what we have. All right, so now we're moving down to the next row. And that next shade is a really light lilac shade. And go figure, I picked the lilac shade out of the Huda Beauty Pastel Lilac palette. And that's this shade right here. And I think it resembles that color pretty well. Okay. And then the next shade down is this really deep kind of plum shade. I started swatching all the shades that I thought were close to that, and none of them were quite the right tone, which makes duping videos so difficult because it's the tone we're looking for. But the one that I thought was closest out of the ones I swatched is out of the Huda Beauty Amethyst Obsessions palette, and it's the shade right here. This really deep, plummy purple. And now I have to really build on this one to make it look similar. You know, again, I've never done a video quite like this before. And there's a lot of these palettes I haven't dipped into in quite a while, so it's kind of nice just being able to, like, remember I have these things and dip back into them, even if it's just swatching. So that's what we have so far. I hope you guys can see all this. Okay, the next shade over is the next multichrome. Now this one looks like it's mostly a purple, like, base, but then it shifts blue. Or like shifts periwinkle. So I looked through the multichromes that I have, and the one that is most similar to this one is from Divina, and this one's called Magnetosphere. And straight on it looks blue, but when you shift it, she's purple. It's kind of hard to catch the shift on camera. There it is. So I'm hoping when I swatch it, you'll see the full effect. The other shadow that I swatched that I thought was like kind of similar, the only thing that's different about this one's called Skyla from Davina, is that this one doesn't really have a colored base. So, well, it does, but it's not dark like it is in this photo. In the photo that I'm looking at, it looks like it has a purple base with a blue flip. This one definitely flips purple and blue, but it's just a little bit different. So I wasn't sure which one to pick for this, but I think I want to go with Magnetosphere. So let me swatch this out so you can see what it looks like, because it's not all blue. I mean, there's a pretty strong blue shift here. And it looks more blue than it does purple, especially on camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swatch that other shade, Skyla, right next to that so you can see what I'm talking about. Of course, this isn't going to be exact because we don't have the exact shadows from Natasha Denona. We're just trying to do a little duping action. Yeah, that one's just has too light of a base, I think. Now, I'll be honest with you, those shades are not exactly as similar as I would like them to be because we're trying to dupe this, but I don't have a purple duochrome that looks similar enough to that, but it's not worth spending $129 to find that, because I could probably find that shade somewhere else for maybe like 10, 15, 18 bucks, something like that. So if I had to choose one that was like semi-similar, it would probably be the first one that I swatched. So I'm going to try to get rid of that one swatch. So it's not exactly like spot on, but you know, it's fun. We could probably have some fun with that. Okay, so for this next shade, it almost looks like a grayish purple shade. And you know what? I looked through my collection, no joke, just now for about a half hour, and I could not find a shade that was resemblant of that shade. Resembled? Whatever. So we're just going to have to wing it and pick a shade because I'm tired of fighting with it. It's bugging me that I can't find something similar. Like, it's really bothering me. Like, out of all these palettes, how do I not have something similar to that shade? Okay, if I want to buy something similar to that, I'll go grab that shade, as opposed to buying a whole palette. Let's go in with the shade down here from the Huda Beauty Pastel Lilac palette. I know it's not anywhere near that shade, but we need to pick a shade because we're running out of time. It's interesting. We got an interesting selection going on there. Okay, the next shade is more of a, what is that? See, it's just so weird how it looks so different in the swatches. It looks more of a, well, it's definitely more of a purple shade. And when I'm looking at my collection, the shade that jumped out at me is the shade Chant from the Be Perfect and Stacey Marie Carnival palette, the original one. That's this one right here. So, that's the one we're going to swatch. It's showing up a lot more pink on camera. I promise it's not pink. It's definitely purple. Some interesting tones. I think we've run out of room. We're going to have to switch it over to the other arm. So that was the first two rows. Now we're going to finish up with the very last row. Okay, the very last row starts off with what looks like an off cream colored matte. And it looks pretty similar on the swatch too. Pretty sure I have something like that somewhere. You should see what's going on in front of me right now. It's a freaking disaster. It is pretty crazy looking. So the shade that I'm going to pick to match that one is from my Lime Crime Venus XL palette. And it's the shade Blank Canvas down here. We're going to use that one. Oh boy, it's all crooked. Can barely see that one. Okay, good enough. The next shade over is this really vibrant, like marigold kind of orangey tone. All right, for this shade, I found it, like, as soon as I opened up this palette, this color screamed at me. Again, this is the Be Perfect Carnival palette with their collaboration with Stacey Marie MUA, and it's the shade Shuffle up top. This really vibrant, like, marigold orange. Shoo, buddy. Okay, the next shade down from that is that other multichrome. Okay, so this next multichrome that I've picked out to match the one in this palette is from the Divina Aurora Flare collection. Same as this one right here that we've grabbed. This one is called Australis, or Australis, I don't know how you pronounce it. But it's that really pretty, like, maroon, and it shifts like that grungy green. Let me see if I can get it to shift. There it is. I also think that that shade is very similar to Extraterrestrial, which is out of the Divine Rose 2 palette, which is this one right here. You got that really pretty shade here, and then when you shift it, it just turns that gold shade. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the swatch on my fingertips to show you the difference between the two, and we'll decide which one we want to go with. I definitely think, well, okay, so this one is the Divina Flare collection, Australis, and this one's Pat McGrath from the Divine Rose 2, Extraterrestrial. So let me see if I can get it to shift a little bit for you. Divina is a lot more like metallic looking and foiled looking, and this one here is just a little bit more muted. I don't know if I would even use the word muted. It just looks not as intense. So right here we have Divina, Pat McGrath. I feel like the Natasha shade is a little more subdued, kind of like the Pat shade. But you know what? I'm going to go with the Divina shade because this is my palette. I'm building a palette. And that's the one I want to use. Dang it, I keep swatching with the wrong hand. If we're going to be building our own palette and using whatever shade we want to use, let's just amp it up a notch. Why not? Plus, it's similar in tone. It's just more shiny. That's all. Like, look at that. Yumminess. There she is. Okay, next in line is this kind of like taupe shade, I think. We're going to take the shade Wild Wing from the ColourPop Flutterby palette. This is like one of my favorite ColourPop palettes. It's so underrated. You don't hear people talk about it quite enough. But I think that shade looks pretty similar to the one in this palette. And then last but not least, it looks like we have like a lighter version of that, honestly. Really, I feel like I can get away with using the shade right next to that. This one's called Made to Last, and that's this one right here. Not too far off. I mean, these swatches are absolutely horrendous, y'all. I'm sorry. There you have it. It's interesting, right? Definitely interesting. So I know that my swatches, the color selections that I picked are not like exact dupes for these shades, but they're pretty close, and I feel like I can come up with eye looks that are relatively similar to what I would make with this palette. I don't need this palette. I don't need to spend $129 on yet another eyeshadow palette when I have literally over 150, 160 palettes sitting behind me. I'll just choose from those. For those of you that are interested in this palette and are going to buy it, I'm happy for you. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you have all the fun in the world with it. I just don't need it. So now that I've picked out the shades that are, go with this palette, I do want to create a quick eye look for you guys. I'll try to make it sped up. I don't want you guys to be sitting through all the boring details. Let's come up with an eye look. All right, I'm going to attempt to come up with an eye look with these colors here. It's definitely different. It's not something that I would have normally paired together to use with this multichrome, but we're going to do it anyway. Okay, I'm going to build up that really beautiful marigold shade in there, and then we'll just go from there. We'll see what happens. boy. I'm not really sure what I'm doing yet, though. I don't have, like, all the experience in the world working with multichromes. I like swatching them. Got lots of experience with that. Just not, like, blending colors into them and making them look cohesive and whatever. Gotta learn somehow. Let's try to blend that out with blank canvas. That's that shade from the Lime Crime palette. This really, like, off-white shade, I guess you would call it. I don't know. Actually, I'm going to try to blend... I don't know what I'm trying to do here. I want to try to blend that orange up just a little bit. That marigold, whatever the hell you want to call it. Looks a little funky right now. Let's try to pack on that shade Wild Wing from the ColourPop Flutterby palette in the outer corner. It's going to be a weird eye look. I mean, it's just such a weird color combo. It's definitely not one that I would have picked out on my own. And I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, I get you don't have to stick with the rose. You can pick any colors you want from that palette, but I was trying to go along with what like their theme was supposed to be, which was like row by row, to come up with a look with these multichromes. I think we're just going to try to roll with it and throw the multichrome on there. I'm not sure how to feel about this. So again, this is the multichrome we're dealing with. Beautiful, like maroon, but yet it shifts a pretty grungy, like gold green. Let's just slap that on. I'm hoping it can make this look better because this looks crazy. I mean, this is different. For sure. Not at all a color combination I would have reached for. I'm just trying to blend something. Anything. What is happening? This is why I don't stray too far out of my comfort zone. I just don't have that... I don't know. I don't have the creative eye. I really don't. I don't know. Am I crazy? The more I'm blending into it, the better it looks. I think I'm just getting tired. I don't totally hate that now. It's kind of different. I kind of like it. All right, I'm going to repeat that on the other eye because it's getting late and I really don't feel like creating a different eye look. Sorry. If you guys want to see more looks with these color combinations, let me know. I will create more videos for you. Because I love you. For reals. Okay, what I ended up doing to finish off this eye, I just took that shade Shuffle, which is that bright orange that we used around the outside to begin with. I stamped it on the lower lash line. I blew it out a little bit with that shade Blank Canvas, which was from the Lime Crime palette. And then I put on some of the Wet n Wild Kohl eyeliner. This one is in the shade Pretty in Mink on my lower waterline. Curled the lashes and put a little bit of the Lash Princess from Essence on the lashes. I'm going to repeat that on the other eye really quickly. Come back and we'll talk about this little hodgepodge palette. Okay, so this is the finished look after I added this on the other eye. It's different. This is actually, I might have blended up a little too high on this side. Anyway, I had to take this contact out. My eye was killing me. There's something stuck in it. But I wanted to finish out this look for you guys. So it looks a little funky, a little uneven. Can't really see what I'm doing. Got one contact in and one out, and I'm blind without my eyes. So this is what we're working with. But I did want to finish up the look for you guys and show you what it looked like using that color combination. I don't hate it. It's definitely different. It's not something that I'm used to seeing on me. Like the purple and the dandelion and just whatever shades that I used. So I hope you guys like this video showing... You know, you don't have to go out and spend $129 on this palette. Use stuff that's already in your collection if you're interested in this palette. If it's the multi-chromes that you want, there are affordable multichromes that you could find out there without buying this entire palette. I had so much fun just coming up with, you know, shades to match to each one of the shades in this palette. I've never done that before. I thought it was interesting. And I'm, you know, looking forward to doing more videos like that in the future. So if you guys like this kind of video from me, make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. It lets me know you like it. It lets YouTube know you like it, and it'll push this content out there for more people to see. And I'm very grateful when you guys take the time to do that. If you've made it this far in the video, but you haven't subscribed to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to ring that notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.